massive achievement that we've pulled out to have Allahudien Paleker joining us on this masterclass. Just to go through a few things. Okay, firstly, before I do that, I also want to take the opportunity in thanking our umpire Allahudien Paleker for accepting our invite, being with us tonight, and also sharing, imparting with his knowledge of the game that we love so dearly. Mr. Paleker, on behalf of all of us and the KZN Cricket England Umpires Association, we'd like to thank you for being with us tonight. Just to go through what we've discussed. So there have been few questions that have been posed, which I have already in the week sent through to Mr. Paleker, and I will go through the questions and he'll obviously answer it to the best of his ability from his experience and knowledge of the game. If we do have any questions, please, I request if we can note that down, and if we still have time at the end, we'll open the floor to that for Mr. Paleker to obviously answer. I will go through the questions, and Allahudien Paleker will obviously go through. Are we okay and ready, Allahudien Paleker?
Yeah, ready. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening,
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
sir.
Good evening.
Okay, I'm going to go through.
Good evening, sir.
Sorry, can everybody just make sure they're on mute?
Yeah,
Because
okay.
the feedback is we can't hear nicely. So please just make sure everybody's on mute.
Okay, thanks, Ali. I'm going to go through the questions in the order that it was obviously sent through to me. So, okay, the first question would be, when it comes to big matches, how do you determine when you step in? How do you determine when you step in with players when they get heated with each other? How do you determine what is good to let go and what needs to be stopped? Allahudien?
Thanks, Dawood. Just before I start on answering the questions, I just want to alert the members about what match management entails. I mean, we all have to make decisions. We know that. We get some right, we get some wrong. There's nothing you can do about that. But in terms of managing the match, that's a very crucial aspect. And even at ICC level, match management is more important than decision making. So there's just a couple of points on match management. For example, at the level that we're talking to you guys here, it's umpires' appearance and presentation, for example. That's one of the points. You can manage that. So all these points I'm going to bring up is things that you are in control of. Just for example, simple thing like dressing correctly and pitching up on time at your game. You know, when you get to the ground, as a team, you go to the scorers, introduce yourself, say who's standing at which end, and things like that. So it actually starts before the game even starts. Also, when you're doing the toss, you know, we try and do the toss together as a team. Both of you are there, speak to the captains, explain to them all the playing conditions or bylaws or things that they need to be aware of. The next one is teamwork. Just understand that teamwork doesn't only entail you and your colleague on the field. At your level, it often entails scorers as well, maybe caterers, if you may be having an early lunch, you know, things like that. And you often find at your level where, you know, guys try and undermine their colleagues, because most of the time you'll find two guys are vying for one position, whether it be to do a final, whether it be to do a Premier League game, or whether it be to get onto the first class panel, for example. So teamwork is important. And then the most important one is communication, you know. So we need to understand what our role in the PCT is, discuss with our colleagues, you know, before the time, how are you going to help each other. Even at international level, we do that. If I'm standing with somebody from another country, we discuss, and this happened now. I was in Finland for 3 weeks. I had umpires from Finland, Netherlands, Denmark, Germany, Italy, Spain, and I've never umpired with them before. So, you know, you need to go back to your basics, discuss, this is how we're going to do. If I'm at square leg, I'm gonna help you if there's a court behind down the leg side. If I'm sure, this is my signal. If I'm not sure, this is what I'm gonna do. So those are all part of managing the match before the match actually starts. And then once you get onto the field, the most important thing there is handling pressure. Just try and stay cool. And if I ask this question, what creates pressure? Most of the time, it's people. Players are making appeals. 2-3 confident appeals, or you may be getting a decision wrong, and that creates pressure on yourself. So those are all inward pressures that you create on yourself. And I just went through some of the questions, and there was quite a few questions on conflict resolution. So that again, from pressure, we get conflict. If you may be under pressure and you make a wrong decision, and now the players need to take it out on somebody. And if we handle pressure poorly, then you're going to have a difficult game. And you guys will know that once you step off the field, you cross that rope, you'll know if I had a good game or not, if I had an error, what could I have done differently. And if you can ask yourself those type of questions, then you know, okay, I had a good game or I didn't have a good game. In conflict, there's two types of conflict. We have player versus player conflict. And so I'm just covering some of these points, and it may just answer some of those questions indirectly. Most of the time when we have player versus player conflict, that's when we need to step in. Allow players to have their say. Chirping is actually good for the game. When you get to higher levels, you'll find it actually quite entertaining, the chirps. And I'm sure at club level also, there must be some very humorous chirps that, makes everybody laugh and just like an icebreaker. But you need to know when to step in. So when I come back to answering that question, I'll just tell you how, some techniques and some things to look out for. Another thing also with conflict is don't intervene too quickly. Because some umpires also have a dislike for getting involved in conflict, whereas others step in too quickly. So now we need to find that balance, because if we can, that can increase the player's respect for you as an umpire. So that's just some of the points on player versus player, and then you obviously have player versus umpire, and that stems from decision making. When they start showing dissent and unhappy at your decision. You must understand that you will never please everyone. So once you understand that, you're going to make decisions based on what you see. You're always going to have one party that's happy and one party that's going to be unhappy. So just understand that. And because our role on the field involves decision making, you can expect dissent to be shown, because most of the time the batsman is never happy when you give him out LBW, even though it's stone dead. So you now just need to manage that, watch for his reactions. Depending on the seriousness of it, you can have a code of conduct. I'm sure that in the leagues there are code of conducts and players do get reported. I don't know if anything gets done at the higher level with regards to the associations, if players do get suspended and things like that. But there is a code of conduct for you to follow. And then when you're having player versus umpire conflict, always try and stay calm. Don't speak to them in an aggressive manner. Don't walk to them in an aggressive manner. And wherever possible, depending on the seriousness of the situation, always involve the captain. So if it's a minor thing that you can deal with on the side and just, maybe the bowler's running in the protected area, you have a quiet word with him. You say, please get out. Maybe after the second or third friendly warning, you now involve the captain and say, Captain, I've spoken to him 2 or 3 times. He's in the protected area. The next time he's in there, it's going to be an official first caution. Everybody knows, the captain knows, and then he can maybe that might change his tactics, and he might just say, okay, let me take this guy out of the attack, or put, bring him on from the other side and test your colleague and see if he's on the same page as you. Yeah, so that's just a few points on match management. And another one is your tact and attitude towards players, how to speak to them. Only interact with them if they ask questions. So you don't initiate anything. So wait for them to ask and respond to their questions. most important, remember it's a player's game. We're only there to interpret the rules for them and control the match. So those are just a few points on match management. I may have answered some of the questions in those points, but Dawood, we can go for the questions. Just repeat question 1 again, please.
Thank you, Palace. Thank you so much for that information. I'm sure that we'll definitely cover most of the questions that have been posed, but we'll just go through it. Okay, so question number 1 was, when it comes to big matches, how do you determine when to step in when players get heated with each other? And adding to that is, how do you determine what is good to let go and what needs to be stopped? Thanks.
Yeah, like I mentioned in the just those points there. So a nice tip is just to make sure that you're always close enough to the players. So if you see something happening, and this comes from match awareness. So if you can anticipate something that's going to happen, you can see the bowler bowled, nicked off the batsman, first slip, dropped the catch, shows a bit of frustration. Next ball, batsman runs down the wicket, slogs top edges over the keeper. So now you can sense that there's some anger in this bowler because he felt that he should have had this guy out. And it could even happen that he may have had him out LBW and you gave it not out, and then the next ball goes for 4. So now there's a bit of tension building between the players. So if you can identify that, you can prepare yourself. Always try to be close to the players so that you can hear what they say, especially when you want to report a player for code of conduct. You have to use the exact words that was used by those players. So if you don't hear what was said, then you cannot put in a report. And like I mentioned, chirping is good for the game. So as long as nothing personal is said, you allow them to go on until you decide that's okay, enough. You just tell the players, guys, both of you have had your say. Enough is enough now. If anybody continues, we'll go to the code of conduct. And most of the time, when you mention the code of conduct, that's when they stop. But it's very important that if you do say that and they do overstep, that you do fill in a code of conduct report. Otherwise, they're going to take you for granted and just say, this guy's not serious. He's just threatening us, but he's not following through. So, yeah. So only when it gets personal, then you step in. If it's nice chirps and, nothing bad being said or not overboard or nothing racial related or that's offending, then you just let it go. But you can decide and say, guys, enough is enough, because at some point it will hold up play. You need to say, guys, can we get on with the game? So it's
before we go on, can I please request if we can take a moment to ensure that our mics are switched off? Thank you. Going on with our questions. How does one establish a rapport with big name players or players who think they're big names while still remaining neutral and professional, especially if your first ever interaction with them is on the field? Over to you, Paris.
Yeah, well, the one tip I can give there is treat everyone the same. Don't look at names or big name players, whatever. What often happens is you'll find provincial players that come down to club level. They try and bully the umpires because they think they know everything, but actually they don't. So you just treat them the same. The only way you'll gain respect amongst players is based on your decision making and experience as well. So if you're on the circuit for a couple of years, they might get to know this umpire because you've done them a few times. And, that's how you'll grow a rapport with all the players because we make decisions and that's the only thing that they judge us on, which is not actually the thing. And it won't happen on the first interaction, definitely not. So it will take a few matches. Players will get to know you. They'll get to know the type of person that you are, and that will, instill confidence in them. But the main tip of advice I can give you there is just treat everyone the same, whether it's Joe Bloggs or Virat Kohli, you treat them the same. Over.
Thank you, Paris. Thank you very much. Question number 2 on that one. Should one always communicate to players via the captain if there is an issue building, or do some players prefer to be spoken to directly? How do you tell the difference as I'm sure getting the captains involved every time could take a player feel like, every time could make a player feel like you are belittling them. Over to you.
Yeah, again, it depends on the situation there. So if it's a minor thing and you think you can deal with it with the player and just have a word with him, sometimes that's good match management and you can deal with him. Like I used that example earlier on, if a bowler is running the protected area, you can just have a word with him. Come on now, let's work together, and so you're trying to help him as well. Or if a bowler's tight on the front line, you can just say, come now, bring it back a bit. The front foot's quite close there. So in those instances, you don't need to involve the captain because you're trying to manage the match with him. If now he does go into the protected area and you've warned him 2 or 3 times, friendly warnings, then you tell the captain, listen, captain, I've spoken to him. He's in there. This is the next time he's in there will be his first caution. And when there's chirping and, misbehavior by players, then you always involve the captain. You get the captain, and like we mentioned, teamwork. Even though your colleague maybe hasn't seen anything or he's not in a position to comment, just his presence there makes it looks like a team. So it's not one person that's, from outside it looks like, okay, only he's having a go, his colleague's not there. So as a team together, just have a word. So again, it depends on the situation. And with experience, you will know when to speak to the captain and when not to speak to the captain. When it comes to overrates, you always have to speak to the captain. But he may tell you, I got so much on my mind, just communicate the overrates to my wicketkeeper, for example. Now you tell the wicketkeeper, you up, and when he's down, then you think, okay, this time I need to tell the captain that his overrate is down, because at the end of the day, the captain is responsible for his team's overrates. So it all depends on the situation. Over.
Thank you for that, Palis. Next question would be, okay, so umpires takes 2 balls from a brand new box of balls, unwraps one to check it is right. It is. Puts both in the bag for the match. Takes the wrap one onto the game. First over, wicket is taken. After the first ball, bowler notices the ball is actually a 2-piece. What should the umpire's action be with regards to, number 1, the law, number 2, the players where the batting team are happy to restart the innings and bowling teams are not? Over.
In terms of the law, you can't change that. Once that dismissal has happened, it's happened. Batsman is out. You can fix what's wrong after that. So you can now change the ball and bring the ball that you are supposed to have used for that match. If the 2 captains decide that, we can restart and the fielding team is happy to withdraw the appeal, then by all means you can restart the game. But again, you need both parties to agree, and then you can restart the game and say, you know what, we used the wrong ball. Here's the right one. Can we restart? But only if both parties agree. If they don't, unfortunately, the wicket stands and you just continue and change the ball. Over.
Thank you, Paris. Next question. How do you prepare yourself before any game, be it any format, and what do you do individually after the game? Thank you.
My preparation is the same for all matches. I have certain routines. I have certain things that I do, like 15 minutes before we walk onto the field. I'm basically sitting down, visualizing, focusing, and, trying to just be in my own space and get tuned in for the game. So for all games, all formats, it's the same. Obviously for T20s, the intensity is a bit higher. So you need to be more alert. I mean, you could have an appeal first ball and everything happens fast. Test matches is a bit slower because, things happen at a slower pace. However, you still need to be ready because you could have an appeal on the first ball and you need to be ready. If I just use an example of what type of preparation goes in, that's just match preparation, which has become muscle memory now for me. So I just go through the routines and everything just happens naturally. I went to Finland 3 weeks or a month ago. I went to Finland for 3 weeks. And part of my preparation was I had to look at the weather forecast. It's peak summer there. It didn't get much above 20, 22 degrees maximum for summer. It was actually cold for me. I wore a jacket every day while on field, whereas my colleagues felt, they said, no, this is beautiful weather for them in Europe. Whereas for us, I mean, the winter here in South Africa is warmer than their summer, if I can relate that to you. So I was out of my comfort zone now, umpiring in foreign conditions. The other thing that was I had to prepare for, I had to umpire on artificial turf, which we don't use in South Africa. All our club cricket, first-class cricket, we play on turf pitches. And in Europe, because of the weather conditions, they do not have any turf pitches, except in Ireland, Scotland, Netherlands, and the UK, London. The rest of Europe, they play on astro pitches. So I had to now try and see, how am I going to deal with this? The bounce is different. It's slower because the ball kind of gets like stuck in the mat. So, all those were things that I had to think about in terms of my preparation. Another thing that was difficult for me to combat on my trip was food. Being a Muslim and having to eat halal food, the closest halal takeaway or restaurant was 30 minutes from the hotel. So for 2 days, I was vegetarian, and on the rest day, I was able to have some halal food. So that was a challenge as well, So the other thing was the days were very long. When I got there, the first day, sunset was at 11:15 in the evening. So think about that, sunrise at about 3:30 in the morning till 11:15. That's almost 21 hours of sunlight. So the sun set very late. So the days were very long, and I had to try and manage my sleeping patterns. So that was a challenge. So preparation is not only about matches, and you guys that's going to a venue, if you're umpiring at a ground where there's, wind or open, that kind of things. So, you just got to look where you're going, what you need to do, and prepare yourself for whatever is thrown at you, and that will make your task easier. Over.
Thank you, Paris. Okay, so the next batch of questions is obviously from one person, but I'm going to go through it question by question. Positive body language for an umpire, how important is that?
Yeah, it's very important because with your body language, you're able to sell a decision. So if you give somebody out and you're confident and you show that you're confident in your decision making, that sells a decision. Players will try you out, and they can pick up quickly when this guy is a bit doubtful, or they'll know exactly. They'll say, hey, this guy coming here this week, let's just appeal 2 or 3 times. The 4th appeal, we're definitely going our way. So they get to know how you behave, and they take note of these things. So yeah, body language, very important. Also gives you a presence at the crease. So if you stand with hands lackadaisical and, don't look very confident, then it doesn't give you that presence and authoritative look at the crease. Over.
Thank you. I just went through the questions, and I've obviously come across where a few questions you have already answered. So because of time constraint, I'm not going to repeat those questions. How long do you dwell on a decision? Yeah, sorry. How long do you dwell on a decision, as we do not have a review system? And do you try replaying it in your mind?
Not very long, because once a decision is made, you can't change it. It's done. If you can't change the decision, the next ball is more important. What is important, that is when I go back to striker's end and you stand there, and now you play that through your mind and try and think, okay, if I did get that wrong, what could I have done differently? And you try and learn from that. At international level, it's very easy because of the DRS. So your decision gets rectified immediately. You need to now focus on the next ball. And believe me, it's not an easy thing to stand there and cancel your previous decision, and then you hear in your earpiece, You're on screen now, reverse your decision from out to not out. Doing that with a brave, with the same facial expressions, and then the next ball, get another appeal, and you have to reverse again. So that is quite tough. So it's something that you need to train yourself for and be prepared for. But yeah, I mean, at our level where there's no DRS, you need to just forget about it. The next ball is more important. But when you switch down at strikers in, then you can think about, if I gave an LBW and maybe I gave it out and I got to my colleague and he said, I thought maybe it was a bit high, it was above the flap or whatever the case is, then use that information so that if you do have another appeal that's similar, you can say, hey, I gave that one, might have been a bit high. Maybe let me give this one not out because I'm not sure the bounce or whatever it is. So yeah, try not to dwell too much on those decisions and focus on the next ball. Over.
Thank you. How does an umpire earn the trust of the players?
I think, again, that will come with experience. You know, if they know you and, you know, they'll judge you. Again, for the players, it's only about decision making. So they're only going to judge you on your decisions. If you make good decisions and, you know, your rapport with the players and, you know, your communication is good with them, and that's the only way you're going to gain trust from them, because then they won't take chances. When they take all these frivolous appeals, then you must know, you know, these guys are testing me. Over.
I'm sure, well, okay, in my case, I haven't come across it, thankfully, but I'm sure this question is a very interesting question. But with your knowledge, you can obviously assist us in the event if we do come across this. Hopefully not. Okay, so the question is, have you ever come across a colleague that you stand with, but you do not gel with your colleague? And how would you work yourself out of the situation? Over.
Look, the one thing that you have to realize is that everybody's different. So on the day when you know, again, if you come back to preparation, I'm not sure how far in advance you get your appointments. So if you know I'm standing with X person and we didn't have a good game the last time, then somebody needs to break the ice and, you know, say, hey, we stand together. What time are we arriving at the ground? Can we have a chat before? And, you know, even if you don't get along with that person, but for that day, when you step onto that field, you need to be a team, because the players will easily pick up when there's no teamwork on, and then you put yourself under pressure. So whether you like the person or not, for that particular match, you need to try and make things work. Over.
Thank you, Palis. Are there ever stages of the game that takes you out of focus? And if so, how do you readjust to your level of concentration? Thank you.
I have a keyword which triggers my concentration levels. So as I hear the bowler run in, my hands are locked together. So once they are locked together, I tell myself focus. So once I use the word focus, I'm zoned in on whatever I need to do. As soon as the ball's delivered, then I switch down, relax, take a step back, you know, follow the ball type of thing. So I have a trigger that, you know, every time I get into position, hands together, once my hands are locked, and you'll, if you're watching, you'll probably notice that. Now that I'm telling you that, if you do see me, you'll notice that every ball is exactly the same. So I get into a routine, and as soon as I'm in that position, I just tell myself focus, and then I'm switched on. Over.
Last question. Does the tension on the field ever get to you?
No, I'm quite, I would say, a relaxed guy. I don't let things, you know, phase me too much when I'm on field. I concentrate on what I need to do. But obviously, you need to step in when you need to step in. But, you know, I just try and focus on what I need to do. You often hear this phrase from lots of people. if after the match, if they don't talk about the umpires, then you've done a good job. So that's something I try to live by and just say, let me just do my job and not get involved with players, making conversation, talking. Obviously, you do have a relationship with some players, especially if there's captains. You do speak to them often. So then you do, have conversations with them regarding any issues. Yeah, but I tend to just, block out everything. I mean, I had some friends coming to watch one of the games, and I don't know if any of you have been at Supersport Park. When you walk down that long stairs to get onto the field, the crowd are like a meter away from you. And they were there shouting and screaming and talking to me. And after the match, I said, but you didn't even look at us. You didn't even talk to us. I was so focused on the game, I didn't even realize that they were in the crowd. So, yeah, those things don't bother me. I just try and focus what I need to do. Over.
Thank you, Paris. That brings us to the end of the questions that was sent through to myself. If anyone has, I'm just looking at the time, we have about 15, well, just over 10 minutes, sorry. If anyone has any questions, we're going to open the floor, but please let me go through this. Let's give everyone a fair chance as much as we can. So if anyone has questions, I'm going to request, can we please raise our hands instead of everyone coming on and everyone talking at one go? So can we please raise our hands and yeah, we can go with our questions, please. I see a hand raised by Nirad. Nirad, you can go with your question, please.
Good evening. Thanks for all these inputs. At the junior level, especially beginners and young cricketers, in your experience, are they well aware of the laws, some fine nuances? And if not, how strictly do you enforce?
That's a very good question. I told you I was in Finland a couple of weeks ago, and most of those guys play club cricket, and they get selected for their countries at an ICC level. So they don't even have umpires sometimes at their match. So when you're doing these type of matches, now I'm talking about these are official T20 international matches. We educated the players because we said we're not going to be too strict on certain things because it's part of our job is to educate them. And at the lower level, I'm sure they're not aware of the laws of the game and that. So a lot of education needs to take place before you penalize them. You're not just going to, be like a policeman and just penalize. I mean, the law is the law, but it would help to just, educate them first, especially at junior cricket. When you get to Premier League cricket, by that level, they should know what the law is. Then you penalize them straight away. I had two incidences in my matches in Finland. The one was now this is international level. The keeper took his glove off. The throw came in. He caught it with his right hand, and the keeper's glove on his left hand, and he put the ball on his glove that was not worn. So immediately the ball became dead, illegal fielding. He didn't know what he was penalized for. I called the captain, explained to him. The captain understood the law, and we had to penalize him 5 penalty runs. But he didn't know about that. So it's a fine line because sometimes what will happen is the only way they learn is if you penalize him. 2 days later, I had the same team in another match. I spoke to the keeper. I said, "Did you learn something in the last game?" He said, "Yes, sir. I learned something. I will never do that again." So it's education and you need to enforce the law. So you just need to find the balance. Obviously, at the under 11 level, you're not going to penalize him first time. You're going to tell him, don't do that because this is the law of the game. Over.
Okay, the next person, hands raised, is Sunil Kumar. Before we go on, Sunil, sorry, once we've asked our questions, can we please lower our hands? Thank you. Sunil, you can proceed.
Thanks, sir, for providing such an enlightenment thoughts. I hope I'm audible. Am I audible?
Yeah,
Loud
I
and
can hear
clear.
you
Yeah, yeah.
loud
So
and
my
clear.
Yes, you are.
yeah, yeah. So my question is that being an aspirant umpire, can you suggest some web portals and some YouTube channels to whom we can follow regularly to get updates and learn new things regarding cricket umpiring? Thanks, sir.
Yeah, resources are always very helpful. The ICC are busy redoing their website, which is called the ICC accreditation website. And on that website, there is documents, there is videos, there's explanations. It's very thorough. I was part of the group that was redoing that website. Um, we completed it during this lockdown period last year. But I think they're having some issues with licenses and stuff like that to load it. So I'm not sure if the old one still works, but it's just icc.accreditation.com. I think that's the web page. But you can just Google and find that. Most of the things that you need, you'll find on that website. Over.
Thank you for your question, Sunil. Next person I see hand raised is Kunicha Regal. Can you proceed with your question?
Hi there, everybody. Hope you all well. It's actually not Konita Regal. Assalamu alaikum, Allahudien. It's Aslam Regal here from Cape Town. Are you?
Oh, alaikum salam. Alhamdulillah. Good, brother. How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, man. No complaints at all. I'm just glad to be part of listening to all your advice and how you go about things. I'm sure everybody's finding it very invaluable. I just have a question for you. Just regarding where dissent is concerned. Okay. A bowler, for example, appeals for LBW and you turn it down and you tell him no, it's not out. And he doesn't tell you directly, okay, but he speaks to his players or he speaks to his captain and he said, yeah, the decision is poor, etc. Would you consider that to be dissent from the player himself, seeing that he's not saying it directly to you? Over.
Yes. Yep. That is dissent. Again, it depends how you want to manage that situation. You can call what in a situation like that, because it's a very subtle way of showing dissent. You'd call the captain and just have a word and say, listen, what the bowler is doing there is showing dissent. If he's going to continue doing that, then we're going to book him under the code of conduct for showing dissent at an umpire's decision, because that's a very subtle way. If he shows
We lost you.
Sorry, Mr. Paleker, I think we lost you a bit there. Mr. Anthony Stokes, can I please ask you to take over while I try and get Mr. Paleker back online? Muhammad Juma?
Dawood, I'm here.
Can you just maybe take over while I try and get Palis online, right?
Gee, no problem. Ladies and gentlemen, we do apologize for the delay in our session. We will try and extend it by a few minutes. I think there's just connectivity issues on our side, but we will get back to you shortly. I ask that you please be patient with us and stay online for a few minutes, and we will get Palis back online.
Come on, Muhammad Juma, man. Sort it out.
Hey, buddy, trying. Warren, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm good, and you?
Hey,
evening,
keeping well,
everybody.
man. Gents, ladies and gents, we have another guest, another umpire on the panel. Warren.
Muhammad Juma, Mr. Paleker says he is online. Mr. Paleker, can you hear us? Am I audible? Can you hear me?
You are
I can
audible.
hear you. Yeah, I can hear you. I don't see Mr. Paleker in the guest list currently.
Also
Stand
don't
by.
see it.
Okay, so he just messaged me to tell me that he got kicked out. I'm requesting that he logs on with the same link. Mr. Paleker is trying to get online. Okay, Mr. Paleker is having difficulty in getting online.
Dawood, let's give it a few minutes, maybe about 4 minutes, and then perhaps if Allahudien is having a slight issue, we can maybe close off the session, and you can thank him from all of us.
Yeah, that's fine. I just messaged him to. Well, he just responded to me now. He says he's going to keep trying.
100%. We more than welcome. Everyone's more than welcome to please stay on and give it a few more minutes while Palis and Dawood try to rectify the issue.
Jones, you can speak about the USA match with the Martins there. What you and what's his name had? You and Heinrich. Player management.
Still recovering. Oh yes, match management. That was definitely a massive learning curve, and yeah, let's. I mean, that was a masterclass for all of you all.
Definitely. Big learning curve for all of us. That.
Yeah, that was something that you sort of don't expect in a reduced game, eh? But we handled it well though in the morning with the rain and sorting out that wicket to get playing done that day.
First time I hear the wicket get lifted like that, the way you and Cam did it.
Hi guys.
I learned a bit of in my.
Salam Mohammed and Amin. Do you guys mind sharing the story of what exactly happened? It sounds like an interesting thing there.
Yeah, I don't mind. If the guys want to hear it, I don't mind giving you guys some. It's actually quite a good experience on match management. It was a massive. So it was a big game. at USA Week. Sorry, I'm just getting out of my kitchen. It was a massive game at USA Week. I think day 3 poured with rain the day before, bucketed, and then so got the ground ready. So there was 4 umpires in that game, 2 thirties, 2 standing. So Heinrich and I were standing. We actually got a session after this as well with the guys that went to Community Cup. So Heinrich and I are standing, 30 and 40 are doing inspections at regular intervals, and then we agreed. I think it was a 30 over game. I think it was. We agreed. Tucks batted first, so they had your Juvesians, your Donovan Ferreiras, your Titans were playing. Then you had your Marties, your whole Cobras, or Boland was on the other end, and it was a game of chirps, but nothing. There was 0 decisions to be made. It was purely a tough game in terms of mentally. So I think it took a lot out of us in the morning by getting that game ready, by making sure play happened. And the next day, that game was chirps from ball 1. It just everything happened. Because there was sawdust on the field, throws were coming in, double bounce. They were managing that ball to try and get it to do things. We kept telling them keep it up. Coach on the side was having a go at the players. Captain under pressure, he's having a go at his players, and then something just burst out of nowhere. It just came out. These guys were wanting to have a full go at each other out of nowhere. It wasn't even something that we were managing the situation, and I think we could have stepped in a bit earlier. But again, we let it go, and it just exploded. But again, it was the players that came down, like Pali said. The Titans players that came down. They want to be hot shots, so if you want to call it that, and then it just burst out. And also on the one end, they knew I don't understand a particular language, so they went on my end with that language. And the captain of the team also is from KZN, played inland under 19, everything. They players from Tuxau, half of them are from inland. Gilson was there, your Javation was there, your guys from Hilton were there. So everyone that I knew in my umpiring circles was all there. Next thing, these guys are going full at each other. Helmets, one guy, I think it was the same game. The keeper was like, no, this guy is on strike. That guy is on strike. This needs to happen now. That needs to happen now. So when you're talking to them, you're sort of brushing it off. And then, coaches were having a full go. It was, it was a massive learning curve. I think we handled it well in that particular situation, considering it was a 30 over game. We had massive rain the night before. Getting play on was I think something special that we did to get a match in. But mentally, it took a lot out of us. And luckily we had not the day off. I think we were 30s the next day because we all had rotation. And I think mentally tough you have to be. And we just learned to step in a bit earlier, I think. And it was just every language was spoken. These guys were the ball. The major thing that we didn't, I think, manage well, which we learned about was the ball. We should. In the end, we should have changed our ball and awarded 5 penalty runs because. But again, 30 over game, you think such a short period, nothing's going to happen. I think it was like 25, 30 overs, so nothing's going to happen like a normal T20. Ball won't reverse. It's
was 25 overs, yeah.
Yeah, so you think to yourself, you know what, nothing's going to happen. Ball's not going to reverse. It's nothing's going to happen. They just outside the ring. Again, you tell them in the ring, 1 bounce. In the ring, no bounce. Outside the ring, 1 bounce. Again, the pitch next door was a bit wet. I think there was some sawdust on there as well. And then, and then you had our manager on the top. And then, it was a massive learning curve. Yeah, it is good though.
Mohammed?
Dawood?
Apologies for obviously being rude. I do believe we have Paddy's back online.
Oh,
Mr.
fantastic.
Paleker, can you hear
Yeah,
us?
thanks.
Yes, I can hear
I'll
you.
end
So I don't
my
know what happened there. I got kicked out. I'm back on.
Welcome back.
Oh.
Okay, so going back into our questions very quickly. Mark Young, you can go ahead.
Evening, everyone. Evening, Mr. Paleker. Earlier, you were speaking about how obviously we do let the chirps flow, and even at the toss, I'll often say to the captains, "Look, chirping's part of the game. Keep it clean. Don't get personal." But I've also been told, don't react to chirps. But sometimes they'll say something, and you hear it building, and then 4 or 5 overs later, the punchline comes, and it's hilarious. Is it a thing can you actually crack a laugh or smile, or do you have to remain completely emotionless through all of that?
Thanks for that question, Mark. Yes, no, you can definitely crack a laugh if it's really funny. I mean, I just don't remember some of the funny chirps that I've been involved in, but there've been so many games where there's, something just breaks the ice and you just have to laugh at that. So yeah, there's nothing wrong because you're listening to what they're saying. So you obviously have to show some sort of emotion if it's a really funny chirp. As long as you know when to step in to stop the chirping so it doesn't become personal, because at some point somebody's going to take offense to that funny chirp. Yeah, but by all means, you can laugh, you can smile, you can speak to your colleague and, say I was talking to him, but in the meantime, you're laughing at them. Over.
Thank you, Palis. I've just received a WhatsApp question. How much of vulgarity do you take, or do you take any? Should you take any? Thank you.
Is that language on the field of play?
Yeah. So okay, I'm going to extend to that question. So, as an umpire, how much do you allow a player to have language on the field, if you do allow it? And I'm just going to extend to that question, and I'm going to ask. So, say for example, you have a bowler bowling and things are not going his way, guys nicking off, catches being dropped, etc. And his language is not directed at a person in particular, but he's obviously being frustrated and now starts to use language. Do you accept it? If you do, to what extent do you accept it? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question, because that happens quite often. If it's loud enough for spectators to hear, and if there's families at the game, at our level we do have stump mics. So if it's picked up on a stump mic, that means it goes out to live TV and everybody can hear. Then you have to report the guy, you have to code him for using language that is vulgar. At the club level, if it's a soft, you just they have a word with him straight away, say, just mind your language. Next time you say that, I'll code you. It obviously depends on the severity and the words that are being used. If it's just the normal F word, because that's these days part of the Afrikaans vocabulary, especially here up north, they love to use those words. So it just depends again how you manage it. Each umpire handles situations differently. You may let it go and have a word with him as he walks past and say, listen, because now he's fuming, you don't want to say the wrong thing to him. He might just swear at you. So again, it's the timing of when to say and what to say. But if it's very loud and audible, and you have families that are watching and they hear, or even opposition can hear off the field of play, then by all means you have to code him. So it just depends on how audible it is and how you want to manage that situation. Over.
Thank you, Perlis. Mark Young, I think we have another question. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Sorry. Obviously, if there's an issue boiling between opposing teams, whatever, I think a fair amount of us have umpired long enough that you can pick up on that and we can step in early enough. But what happens if it's something that happens like I've had a game where batsman hit the ball, keeper, I mean, skied it, keeper dropped it, and then the bowler had it off with the keeper, and so it's teammates having to go at each other on the field. How obviously you can't see that coming. So how firmly and quickly and strongly do you get involved in that?
Yeah, that's if you've been umpiring for a long time, you know who your customers are, you know who your teams are that could be problematic. And I can tell you now, whether you're doing club cricket, domestic cricket, international cricket, every single team has one guy who just loves to upset the apple cart. So, you know, after a while, you get to know who your customers are. You got to be firm with those guys so that they know where to draw the line. And you need to involve the captain. So if something like that happens, you get the captain and say, this is not on. Your bowler speaking to your keeper in this manner, using this type of words. We're not happy with the language that's being used. And if it continues, we will code this player. If it's not too bad, you just say, please, this is unsportsmanlike. I know it's your own teammate, but just the language that's being used, we can code him. But if he has a go at his own player, there's basically nothing much you can do unless he starts using vulgar language. But that would be a good example where you'll just call the captain and say, remember, you're in charge of your team. Please have a word. This is not on. Can we just focus on playing cricket? Over.
Thank you, Palace. I don't see any more hands up. I'm gonna leave the floor open for questions for the next minute or two. Billy, please, you may go ahead with your question.
Thank you. I would like to ask, in the case that probably the players come to you in a spirit that shows they are willing to fight you, how do you go about it? What are some of the mechanisms to go and face that challenge?
Did I get that right? They want to fight with you?
Yes, they are definitely fighting you.
Fighting as in wanting to throw a punch, that type of fight?
Yes, physical fight.
Well, that's not allowed. There's level 4. I don't know if your playing conditions has all those code of conduct offenses in there. I know here in our local leagues in Pretoria, you can actually send a player off the field. Physical violence is not allowed on a cricket field. I do know of instances where players have got some have got bans for 5 years, some have got lifetime bans for fighting on the cricket field. So, I mean, it's supposed to be a gentleman's game. If you see that coming and the guy wants to hit you, I'll run off the field, jump in my car and go home. That's what I would do. And report that player. Over.
Thank you for that. We're going to take our last question. Muhammad Juma, your hand is raised.
Thanks, Dawood. I just want to say two things. To Palis, thanks for giving us your time this evening and sharing your knowledge with everyone. While you were off, actually, I gave an experience of what happened to me at USA, and I just wanted to just touch on that and find out from you how perhaps you would have handled that situation. It's about changing the condition of the ball. So it was a reduced game, 25 overs, rain pelted the night before, lush green outfield, or at least the inner ring and stuff like that. But obviously sawdust is now everywhere. Tough smarties, so you know it's a heated game. It's coming. A language that I don't understand, things like that. How would you have handled? How does one handle especially changing condition of the ball. Someone like Tux with the Donovan Ferreira, guys like that, without signaling them out, know how to do it subtly by throwing it in and stuff like that. When do you step in and say, you know what, guys, now I'm issuing your final warning, or now it's Captain, listen, for next one is going to be, I'm going to change the ball, or whatever the case may be. How do you do that without sort of being too much of a policeman? But yeah, do you still follow the rule in the ring, no bounce, out the ring, one bounce? How do you manage that?
Yeah, that can be difficult, because you must remember there are legal ways of scuffing the ball up. For example, the guys wait for the ball to hit an obstacle outside the boundary. So, for example, he gets hit for a 6, it hits the wall that's on the outside of the boundary. You inspect the ball and you see there's a small little scratch on there. Now, the players at the highest level, they know that scratch on the ball is something to work with. So now they start working the ball by shining the other side, and they just leave that to deteriorate. Now they know they've got to start on that ball. Again, you know what, you inside the circle, no bounces. So they're going to try it. They're going to bounce it from the circle. So you need to step in and say, listen, you can maybe just address the player and say, player, just by using body language and showing him, please keep the ball up so it's visible. Everybody can see that you now seen this contravention, because you must remember that the opposition are watching and they can see what's happening, because they also want to do the same thing. So as soon as you see that, you intervene, make it visible, say, please keep the ball up. So now he's had his friendly warning, if you want to call it that. Does it the second time, you can maybe again say, but if it's a shorter game, then you need to step in a bit quicker. So the first time you just have a friendly warning with the fielder, but make it visible. If it happens again, then you involve the captain and say, Captain, that's now 3 times in the last 2 overs where the ball's been bounced inside the ring. The next time it happens, I'm giving you a final warning, and then explain to him the repercussions of changing the ball and all this and that, because sometimes they don't know that. So the only way the players listen is if you give them official cautions and you take action. That's the only time they're going to listen. Over.
Mr. Paleker, I see we have. Sorry, James. Yeah, Mr. Paleker, I see we have one hand raised. Are we happy to go with the last question? One last question.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, Mark Young, can you proceed?
Juma actually raised a very interesting point there, is in terms of different languages on the field. Obviously, not all of us can speak every language. I can only speak English and Afrikaans myself. So if it comes to Zulu or any of the Indian or Pakistani languages, anything like that, I am completely at sea. Now, is it worth learning or trying to learn some words so that you know at least, okay, this guy's maybe saying something that he shouldn't be saying, or like how can we educate and grow ourselves so that even though we might not be fluent in a language, we can still manage the match when they're not speaking a language that we're fluent in?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's definitely to your advantage if you do understand certain words. Virat Kohli has a very famous word that everybody around the world knows. So when he uses that, everybody knows what he means by that, because it's in a different language, it's in Hindi, but people that don't speak Hindi understands because they've been made aware of that. But just coming back to language on the cricket field, the universal language for cricket around the world is only English. If I look back at this tournament that just was completed in Finland, Turkey played in the tournament, and only 4 members in their team could speak English. The others could not speak a word of English, could not understand English. It was Turkish citizens that played. So fortunately, the captain could understand a little bit, but whenever we needed to relay an important message to him, we were told that this player here understands English fluently. So we'd get him with the captain and tell him, listen, we only want you to bounce the ball once from the boundary and no bounce from inside the circle. Then he would tell the captain in his language, and the captain will say, okay, understand. So, you know, even at international level, they only speak English. Whether you can't speak, then you need an interpreter and things like that. We do have an advantage that we can speak Afrikaans as well. And so those two languages, I think most people understand, although you do get some of our guys that don't understand Afrikaans. So it can be a challenge. So the universal language is English. Also, if a batsman asks you for guard or speaks to you in Afrikaans, always answer him in English, because the opposition may not understand Afrikaans and think that you two are having a nice friendly chat when all he's asking you is maybe for guard or asking you something about the weather, or you know, it could be something completely not related to the match, but the opposition may feel that maybe they're talking about us, or maybe the umpire is too friendly with the opposition, you know, and then that creates that impression that you know, too friendly with them. So just as a guide, try and use English wherever you are. If they do, I mean, it can, if you do know words that are not supposed to be used on the cricket field, then, you know, if you can educate yourself, that will just be an advantage to you. Over.
Thank you, Mr. Paleker. Thank you, Mark Young. On a lighter note, Mark Young, I wouldn't want you to be learning bad words, eh? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I hand you over to the president of our Umpires Association, sorry, the vice president, Mr. Anthony Stokes. Anthony, thank you.
Thank you, Dawood, for this, and thank you, Mr. Paleker. We do appreciate it, and your knowledge and insights have been greatly appreciated. And from our side, we truly appreciate everything and the time you offered for this evening. We do thank you for that. And we are extremely sorry for what happened earlier. We will try to follow that up and rectify that. And yeah, we are truly sorry for that. And then for Dawood, for organizing this, your connections is outstanding. Well done. I hope you've got more. And then Juma, for the poster and advertising and the link you've created and everything. Thank you, guys, all three of you. You've done immense work here, and everybody appreciates it. And I mean, you can see the turnout from all over the country. Thank you very much, guys. And all have a good night. And yeah, maybe we do this soon again.
Pleasure. Thanks, guys. Yeah, wherever I can assist, you know, we can do this again whenever I'm available. No problem at all.
Thank you, Mr. Paleker. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Jazakallah.
Assalamu alaikum, guys.
Thanks, Manesh.
See you, everyone. Great session.
Pleasure,
Cheers.
guys. Have a good evening.
Good
Thanks,
evening.
everyone.